This video is sponsored and brought to you by the dreamers that hang out on my live streams. Stay tuned to the end of the video to hear their names. If you want a chance to vote on what videos I release next, check out the Mr. X Dreams Discord server. Demons, entities of pure malice and deviance, spoken of with hushed tones, in every language known to humankind. But is there a reason stories like this have been so prolific throughout the millennia? Are these entities really what we think they are? Listen to these stories, and let me know what you think. Dear Mr. X, my name is Steven. I'm writing to you to share the story of my first encounter with what may have been some sort of demon. This happened to me when I was in my mid-teens, visiting my older sister Mary's house. She got the place with her now ex-husband. Ever since they bought the house, she used to tell me that she got a lot of strange, unsettling feelings whenever she was there. They tried having a priest cleanse the house, but those weird vibes never really went away. There was a guest room tucked away at the end of the hall that gave off a particularly ominous feeling whenever we went near it. The room had a walk-in bathroom with a standing shower that was built in the shape of a pentagon. One evening, when I was visiting, I stayed in that room and decided to take a shower. At first, I didn't feel anything out of the ordinary. The shower curtain was slightly open, since it wasn't quite large enough to cover the space it was meant to. By chance, I was casually washing up, and I happened to glance out through the open space between the curtain and the wall. For a moment, just a moment, I saw someone, a woman. The first thing I noticed about her were her eyes. They were large and completely filled with black like polished stones. Her hair was also black, messy and frizzy. She was naked and crouched low to the ground, her arms crossed covering her breasts. Her skin tone was something I still struggle to describe. It seemed unreal, almost synthetic, not a natural color, if that makes sense. It was somewhere between light tan and a sickly yellow. She appeared to be Caucasian in terms of facial features, but her overall appearance was so alien that it made her seem inhuman. Her glassy eyes met with mine, and when I blinked, she completely vanished into thin air. I didn't feel threatened by her presence for some reason. She almost had a look of curiosity in the dark pools of her eyes. After she disappeared, I felt her presence enter the shower with me. There was a clear, seductive intent in the small, confined space. After that, she began following me. The next day at home, I was in the pool with my other sister, Gloria. It was late at night, and we were just hanging out. Suddenly, I began feeling something tugging at my shorts in the water. I also felt some kind of body brushing against my leg. I looked around and saw nothing near me in the water. My sister was all the way on the other side of the pool. When I turned to see exactly where Gloria was, I saw something else instead. The girl from the shower slowly rose out of the water in front of me, facing slightly away. Her hair was wet and hung down over her face, so I couldn't see her eyes. Her skin was even more sickly, but this time a pale gray, unlike before. Although she looked a little different, the energy she carried was unmistakable. It was the same person, or thing, whatever you want to call it. She just popped up out of the water and then back under, disappearing again under the ripples. Moments later, Gloria said she wanted to get out of the pool because she felt something touching her leg. She said it felt like a snake or something, but whatever it was, it creeped her out. I asked her to stay for a while longer. When she asked why, I actually explained to her what I had seen, begging her not to freak out. I told her I wanted to see if the ghost girl would come back, but I didn't want to be in the pool alone if she did. I can't really blame her for saying hell no, and getting out of the pool despite my request. A few years later, my older sister Mary moved away. I believe that whatever spirits or entities were living in her old house must have followed her to the new place. I would hate to think that she might just have the horrible luck of randomly picking 2 haunted houses in a row. I went to visit her one day and ended up in the house by myself for a while, since she and her husband were at work. I could hear loud footsteps echoing from the kitchen, which I had a clear view of from where I was sitting, on the couch in the living room. The footsteps were pacing back and forth, practically right in front of me, but there was no one there. The doorknob to the den began shaking. I started hearing a voice in my head, the words, "I want your soul," being said in my mind, but by a male voice I did not recognize. With a mixture of sarcasm and anxiety, I replied, "Well, how do you propose to get that?" I almost fell over when the voice went from being in my head to filling the entire room around me. I heard the voice with my ears this time as it shouted violently, "You die." I could feel the reverberation of the voice in the air. At the same time, most of the ambient heat in the room was swept out, leaving the space frigid cold. That night, I was laying on the couch in the den trying to sleep. Can't believe he still slept there. I was staring at the open bathroom door, a short distance past my feet, when a very tall male figure walked out. Like the girl in the shower, he was also completely naked. His body seemed to be in peak physical condition as he stood well over 6 feet tall. He had short, black hair, and the same skin tone as the girl I saw. His presence was absolutely oppressive, terrifying. I could sense that he was the same entity that yelled at me earlier. With a terrifying speed, he moved toward me and leaned over to whisper something into my ear. The thing is, as I stared into the obsidian jewels of his eyes, he spoke so fast that I could not understand a single word he had to say. Then, as suddenly as he appeared, he was gone. Mind you, I was able to move and speak during this entire time. I was simply too scared to do so until he was gone. That's why I don't believe this was a case of sleep paralysis. I often wonder what those things were. Maybe I'll never know. Either way, that's my story. Sincerely, Steven. Hey there friends, Mr. X here. So, this was an interesting story. Let's start with the entities themselves. So there were two similar looking apparitions that Steven encountered throughout the story. The first one, a female, seemed to appear when he was immersed in water for some reason. I wonder if that was a coincidence or if there was more to it. The fact that the first time he saw her was in the shower and the second time in the pool, and the other entity that he saw, the male, was in totally different situations where he was not in any kind of aquatic or wet environment. He did say that they both had the same black jewel-like eyes as well, which I thought was interesting. Although he did not really mention too much about the male's skin tone versus the two different appearances of the female. So, the appearance of these entities seemed to be a bit different than the standard ghost sightings that you hear about in ghost stories, which leads me to tend to classify these events as related to the phenomenon colloquially known as demon activity. I would assume that the two entities are somehow related, and as some of the live listeners have said, could be related literally, like as in being siblings, being that they had similar attributes and they both seemed to gravitate to the same person. Steven mentioned that the ghostly beings must have been following his sister, since all the encounters happened at her two different residences. However, I'm not entirely sure Steven himself is not the actual lightning rod attracting this paranormal activity. So, think back to the story I told a while back about the couple that was haunting a woman's house. I posted it not too long ago. It was a couple where there was a male and female, and the male seemed to have unalived the female at some point in the past. And it was playing out almost as though it was a movie in front of the young girl that visited this house. And those things only really, in that case, those things only happened when Tammy, the little girl, was actually there. But in this case, Steve said that his sister did experience strange things and strange sensations and feelings even when he wasn't there. So it really is a toss-up between who is sort of the target or the person of interest in this story. Interesting to think about. It could very well be that these two entities follow the sister, but since she can't actually perceive them fully, they only really act up when Steve, the brother, who may be more sensitive to this realm, is around. So dreams and sleep paralysis really don't work as explanations in this particular case, because Steve seemed to be wide awake in all of these times, except maybe the one where he's kind of chilling out on the couch and saw the male entity approach him and whisper super fast in his ear, which must have been terrifying. But normally I look for ways of chalking things like this up to the phenomenon of sleep paralysis, for example. But he was swimming actively, he was in the shower showering actively, and other times he didn't seem to be going to bed or getting up from bed. So I really would tend to not lean in that direction. So now, I have some questions for you to start off this conversation. Do you think Steve may really be able to perceive the actions of beings that exist beyond our natural realm? What do you think the relationship may be between the two entities? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Now, I'm going to go to the Dreamers chatting right now on the live chat to see what they had to say. Remember, if you want a chance at your question showing up or comment showing up in a future video, or the chance to sponsor a video with a super chat, turn on notifications so you catch the live reading and discussion. Alright, so got some great comments here. Lorie Long says, definitely seems like a demon of some sort. And I would tend to agree, because I was thinking ghost at first, but something about the appearance of these entities with the black eyes that almost look like jewels, and that whole weird time warp of the movement, and the fact that it was in water where he sees the female. It just seems like a different type of energy than a normal apparition. And who knows, maybe there's no difference between the two. I don't know. The Night Companion says, they say water is a conduit in aspects of spirituality, something that connects us all. That's a very mystical comment there, my acolyte of old. It's an interesting thought that perhaps, at least for the case of this female entity, or apparently female entity, that she is able to connect with Stephen when he's in contact with water. I wonder if that might be some sort of catalyst with her in particular. But then again, I wonder why it's different between her and then the male. Brett says, sounds like the female entity might have liked the person, and the male entity got angry and jealous and tried to scare him away. That's a really... See, the reason why I bring you all into these videos now, and I wish I had the idea to do it sooner, and I'm glad I'm doing it now, is you all have... If I'm reading a story and I come up with my own interpretation of what I'm seeing and my own idea of what's going on, it's really valuable to me to have 30 or 40 or 50 people listening at the same time, and a handful of them, I can pick their brains and have them offer their completely different perspective from mine. And this is something that I wouldn't have thought of, that the male entity, and that I've heard, and there's a couple other concepts that you all offered up, but the whole jealousy aspect is something that didn't cross my mind. And he's essentially saying that, well, I wouldn't use this word because I consider this a somewhat family-friendly channel, but the male entity was attempting to block a certain body part of our protagonist in this story. I'll leave it at that. I'm sure you all know the type of blocking I'm referring to. So very, very interesting point, Brett. Cindy said, my grandma told me of a twin brother and sister that were half demon, half human hybrids, and were also tricksters that messed with people. And that brings up the whole idea of like the Nephilim and things that may actually, my mind just goes running wild when I think about human, demon, or angel hybrids. That's something I might just have to bring that into another video or something, because it seems really expansive and a really fascinating subject. Something maybe I might have to call my man Tony Merkel over at the Confessionals podcast and pick his brain about that. Which, by the way, I've been hearing a lot of people saying that he's been talking about me on his show recently, with people talking about dreams and things like that. If you all like my show, I'm sure you will enjoy the Confessionals podcast. Go check him out, my man Tony, and tell him that I sent you. He's on YouTube now. He's on Instagram, everything, Twitter. But you could find his podcast pretty much everywhere. Fantastic, high production value podcast. Check him out for sure. But yes, half demon, half human hybrids. There will be some sort of discussion of that in the future. So stay tuned. Lady Draco 87 says, maybe the entities were feeding off the bad energy between the guy's sister and her husband, since it was mentioned that she had an ex-husband. That's another thing that didn't cross my mind initially when I was writing. I got the email about this story and I was writing it into my own style. It didn't cross my mind that it's commonly believed and it's commonly said that entities can latch on to negative energy, or so it's said out there in the world of mythology and lore and legend. It's something that could very well be an explanation for why these entities seem to have been following Stephen's sister from place to place. Maybe if that was indeed the relationship that she had with her husband at the time, for some reason it was attractive to these types of entities, and Stephen was one who was able to perceive that more than the rest of them. Very interesting ideas. So, thank you all again so much for listening, for contributing to the conversation, and I am going to leave it there. But before you go, if you're still listening to this part of the video, that means you are a true dreamer. So Samantha gave us a beautiful code word for this video, birthday suit. I know it's 2 words, but we're going to say it's the code word for today's video. If you're still listening, type birthday suit into your comment down below so I can see who the real dreamers are. Be creative with it, surprise me, entertain me. I've entertained you, now it's your turn to pay it back. Give me a little something to smirk about. Alright, y'all take care, my friends. Later. Special thanks to this week's Super Chat sponsors: Cindy, Terico, Lilah, Lorie, Zen, Samantha, Jessica B., and the Night Companion. Thank you all very much. All right. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, don't forget to like and share. If you made it to the very end, you're exactly the kind of subscriber I'm looking for. Don't forget to turn on those notifications. That way, you can catch the live show and discuss the stories with me. Your input might even appear in my next video. Last thing, if you heard a code word after the story, type it in a comment down below so I know who the real dreamers are. Take care, my friend. Until next time.